Are there any changes to the agenda?
We don't have the agenda in front of us.
Oh, here. Oh. Sure.
Is this one I put up, or?
Yes, if you,
Okay, so I wanted to ask if we could do a brief overview of where all the projects we have worked on over the year are, the status of them. And then after our previous meeting in regards to the aquifer, I was wondering if we could have a conversation about possibly rezoning that area to restrict any companies going in there in the future, if everything there now would be grandfathered, to restrict any companies that dealt with any kind of hazardous fuels or any kind of hazardous, anything hazardous to the aquifer could be, that area could be rezoned to restrict those in the future.
okay, we'll add those to the end. So, are there any changes to the public hearing minutes from September 26th? Do I have a motion to approve them? Second? Okay. Yeah, all in favor? Yeah, I was just getting down. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Then I guess I will turn this workshop over to Aaron and let you go through it.
Hopefully you take more time. I just kind of wanted to just kind of highlight some changes there. And I apologize for the late delivery, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a continuation of the sort of initial steps for the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan. We're not at this point devising any policies or any future land uses. We're just kind of, this is an effort to really fully understand existing conditions. And since our last meeting, we've incorporated changes with respect to the community profile document, which is essentially an existing conditions report. The state of Kootenai County as it pertains to demographics, existing zoning, existing land uses, housing, special areas and sites, historic preservation efforts, hazardous areas, and several other things that we've talked about through the course of the last few months. A couple of new sections I've added or filled in. One is about the historic preservation efforts, which dovetails the recently adopted 24 to 2029 historic preservation plan. And I incorporated essentially the mission of the commission and when it was founded and the goals that plan aspires to over the next few years. In addition, we've had a lot of back and forth with Parks and Waterways Director. He has not reviewed that really kind of brief summary that I provided. All the changes in the document that you received, I guess probably this morning, are tracked. So we did a general summary of Parks and Rec, which I'll go over. And again, we're hoping Nick can fill in and correct anything that needs correcting there. So just consider that tentative. There might be some further tweaks later for that. And kind of going down to land use, existing zoning. Cost of community services. We talked about that last time. I provided further detail about that based on that 2017 report, which was kind of a redux of a report done in 1999 or 98, both by different universities in Idaho. BYU was the last one. And so I provided some detail, and then footnote is a link to that report, which is actually on the legislature's website. And it talks about the cost of service relative to the revenue generated from different land use types. And I can go over that a little bit and answer any questions. We've talked about that before. And then finally, we've initiated a new kind of effort, which I wanted to go over and see if you think it might be valuable for you. It's an analysis of trying to visualize what growth could look like. And this was kind of an idea born by David and I over lunch, where and I did this once for Bonner County. It's very, very simplistic GIS analysis, and we may try to take it a little bit further this time around. So we're still working through that, and I included an image that's very preliminary, and I have some additional images that we've actually been able to find some better data to use for that analysis. So I'll go over that as well. And as part of that, we've added a column in the existing zoning. We also have to update our zoning because there's been some recent zone changes, so we're doing that as well. But we've added a column that kind of simply describes existing zoning to indicate what the density is. And we've also included the recently adopted help me out, Pat. The aquifer subsurface discharge. Yeah. And where density is a little different. So we're considering that as well. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So those are kind of the main things, and then we can talk about what's next, which is kind of a more robust policy analysis. First look at your overall elements. The elements have changed, I think, since, well, maybe not since 2020, but since 2010. We want to make sure that all elements are addressed. One element that we really haven't delved into in this report that maybe we should is the airport, a required element for any comp plan. And there are a lot of guidelines by ITD Aeronautics Division, Idaho Transportation Department Aeronautics Division, land use guidelines that we may reference. Little talk louder. Okay. That's something that, and when I started to just think about all the elements that are required, there's 17. We want to make sure that our first step is going to be to look at your existing comp plan against all those 17 elements and see what elements might be lacking, and then from there, going to see what policies may be contradictory to each other, which may be redundant, which may warrant a closer look at given the change of conditions since 2010 and even 2020. So that's coming. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions at the onset, or I can kind of dive in to the track changes to the document that was sent this morning. Dive in? Okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And this might get a little dyslexic. It's a large document, so I'm going to do some quick scrolling here. Make sure it's up so it can be seen.
It worked.
Okay. Let me just kind of start. I'm going to just go down to the first track changes here. Okay. Setting in history. We got a comment about, and actually this came from IDEQ, Jamie Bruner. Mm-hmm. She provided a comment around, making sure we properly address the history of mining in Kootenai County, which is significant. So I added a little bit of language about that, and how that really kind of ushered in timber and the railroad and everything, which is an important aspect of the history of the county. Again, the community profile is a snapshot of a lot of things, right? So we try to make it as concise as possible, but not leave out anything of significance, with references to where additional detail may be found.
Aaron, is this the time when we should nitpick grammar and typos and that
Yeah,
kind of
if
thing?
there is something on that portion that I
Well, just
need
on
to
the red
correct-
portion you just showed us, I noticed it jumped out at me that.
Yeah, please do.
Just some typos, I would call it, but if
Yeah.
you read through it, you'll see that investments for support, I mean, it says investments
So, yeah, so,
could be two.
right.
Oh, thank you.
And then there are a couple of fours, and you only need one FOR a few words down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not just for gold deposits, but also red. So thank you. I think I got to that one rather late last night, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. There's another one coming up. But
Oh, there
it's
is?
just- Yeah, it's minor.
We're,
I'll
Let's-
remember when we get
let's
there.
nail it. Okay. No changes here, although I did want to ask, we did provide a draft of this, the earlier draft of this profile report to the tribe, and I don't know if they've gotten back with any feedback.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Did they know they were supposed to? Or
Was it
I-
just-
are they
yeah.
waiting for? the
I
final?
believe they wanted to know when we were, when the timeline is for adoption, which we don't have at this point. So that may have, relaxed their
Diligence.
diligence to get back. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, another, okay, maybe. Okay, historic preservation efforts, again, I just kind of included a snapshot of the 3 essential goals by the Historic Preservation Committee's adopted plan, adopted by the Board of County Commissioners, 24 to 2029, public available website, build community awareness, identify and access cultural resources, mitigate risk to historic cultural resources. There were several implementation or action efforts below those. I didn't include them, but I certainly can if you'd like me to. And then their mission statement and kind of the history of the commission, which was created in 1985. No changes to the hazard area, the hazardous areas. But you did have a question about what constitutes a hazardous fuel, which I will not venture to answer without making sure I give the correct answer, unless somebody has it. I'm looking at you.
When you deal with releases of hazardous substances, that's a spill, type of thing.
Any kind of anything, a petroleum product, any of those kind of things are hazardous substances. People mistake that and they call, well, toxic. A lot of people like to use the term toxic, but the better term is a hazardous substance, because if you spill too much of a bunch of soybeans, it could be a hazard, So, I mean, we have to be careful with how we deal with that, so. yeah.
What made me think of it on page 9, when there's mitigation activities, I just happened to notice, where is it, for Coeur d'Alene, completed hazardous fuel treatment work in woodland area behind Target store between Highway 95 and Government Way.
That's why, we're in the wildfire risk here.
Yeah,
That's
so
what
what, is that just overgrowth of brush? Does that create hazardous fuel?
Oh,
or-
okay,
You
yeah.
You can.
can.
Right.
can be.
So I'm just trying to have a better understanding of what
forest.
that means.
Okay, yeah.
An unthinned forest
You can
could be.
consider petroleum products or any flammable product as a fuel, but all this timber we got around us here
Okay.
is a fuel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you asked that question, I thought we were actually talking about, jet fuel or,
Yeah, I didn't know.
Diesel
And I was
fuel.
thinking, was there some
Yeah, yeah.
chemical spill
Yeah.
behind Target that I never heard
Yeah.
of, you know? Or
Fuel is also, as
And
mentioned,
this
it's,
is a reference, I'm sure, to timber, brush, or whatever, grass,
Right.
Yeah.
or something like that, yeah.
So Aaron, the forest action plan is being updated and due, I believe, the first of the year. And so there will be a realignment of the assessment of what the wildfire danger is for the whole state. And if the maps I saw a few months ago are any indication, we're gonna be more in the red than we have been. And
Yeah.
the higher
You know,
danger-
Sure.
if we change this, I can understand with someone else who doesn't understand hazardous fuels being, timber and stuff. What would happen if in each one of these, we said completed hazardous vegetative fuel treatment? Put the word vegetative in each one of those so that someone doesn't think that there's a big barrel of gasoline
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, well, that
Sure.
word fuel, I think of a liquid
Yeah.
like
yeah.
petroleum.
or something like
But
that,
if you use the
so.
term vegetative fuel there, then in each one of those areas, then that would, because it's wildfires what we're talking
Right,
about in this
right,
section.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Also, could we include the forest action plan in this report? I think that would be a really
As a
good addition
reference.
for people, for understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go
Yeah,
ahead
yeah.
and vegetative. Let's see here. Rural hazard mitigation plan, wildfire risk. I'll just put a note to myself.
So also that would apply to the one right above that, Athol Bayview, complete hazardous fuel treatment work along Highway 54 between Spirit Lake and Farragut State Park. Was that a vegetative fuel that we're referring to? So,
And see, if you
Yeah.
notice the one for Hayden Lake down there, it already has the word vegetation in it. See, down a little ways. Vegetative management, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I may ask, I didn't quite catch that, but I want to make sure the forest action plan is led by, is it?
It's a state, it's IDL.
It's led by IDL? Okay. I just want to know where I can go to find that. Okay.
And it's not completed yet, but it's due, I think it's federally mandated, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
And it's a county specific?
It's
Forest?
state specific, but each county is included, yes.
Okay. Okay.
and maybe we could have a link to the state, but then pull out, put in at least an excerpt
Yeah.
for our county.
Yeah.
Would be what I would say. And that way people can go back and reference the actual report.
Yeah.
It would be, in trying to inform the public as best about why we make our choices.
Right.
Having references for them to actually look at is
Right.
useful.
And, may want to make sure that it's consistent with the, with what we have now and see if there's
Yeah.
anything that needs to be couched or tweaked.
And when this says completed on here, does that mean that it has been completed?
Yes,
Okay.
as of, 2021.
I don't know, because behind Target, it still looks pretty rough.
Well, maybe it grew back.
That's true. That happens, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's kind of a point I have on, at Kootenai County, that they reduced the amount of hazardous fuels, completed 5 projects in 2014. It's
Right,
it's almost like insignificant or moot at this point.
right.
And this is an update, we're talking about something that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah. Now, the problem is we're referencing a hazard mitigation plan that's that old. And
Everything that happened between, on record.
he's got the most recent version. And so, no, it's not as far as I know.
Well, you know, maybe it's not worth including the projects that were completed as of
That are that old.
2021.
We might touch base with the folks in the sheriff's staff
Okay.
and just see what they think. Because, yeah,
I
we,
wonder if there's a need to talk, you know, the Forest Service has got a big fuels management thing going on in Kootenai County right now. They did a big one around Hayden Lake, and I mean, they're gonna get a whole lot more volume of this kind of work done than the counties and stuff are in the communities.
That's good neighbor authority.
Yeah, as far as wildfire fuel management, but it's all still in Kootenai County, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and all it's gotta do is jump from the forest into the neighborhood and burn a town down or something, so.
Well,
Yeah.
most of the money is coming from the federal government to do this in one, whether it's through Good Neighbor or some of the other programs. And, oh, sorry. Most of the money is coming from the federal government
Yeah,
with matching by IDL, which is mostly their
but the
people.
Forest Service itself has its own
Right,
fuel management program, you know,
Right.
and in fact, I think they're asking for input on another big fuel management area now. I think it was in the paper or something, so.
Well, back on Kootenai County in 2014, that kind of begs the question about when it was, when the treatment was behind Target and whatever, maybe that was in 2014 too, so maybe if we're gonna date one, we should date them all. If we're not gonna date any, then we should not date any.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too, yeah.
okay.
I would say that IDL would give you a lot of answers to these questions.
Okay.
Same with our Office of Emergency Management.
yeah.
I think even some of the area fire districts are doing management too within the
Yeah.
areas. That might be not necessarily what has been completed, but I think maybe what they are proposing or planning on doing could be part of the table too.
From where?
So like Northern Lakes Fire District, for instance, I know they're doing a lot around
Each of the fire
But yeah,
districts.
I think that'll help give us a cleaner picture of exactly what needs to get done and what, yeah, because otherwise this doesn't make sense.
And also who's doing it. It's not just what needs to get done, but who's
Right,
doing it.
right, who's
so that,
responsible for it, right.
You know, because it is a community effort and it actually indicates
Yeah.
that various members of the community
Excellent point, yes.
are actually concerned.
Mhm.
Because when you start showing more and more people doing this stuff, hazardous vegetative fuel mitigation type of work, it shows that this is actually very serious to people that are actually looking at this, when you actually have a lot of players involved in doing that type of stuff. So it lends a little bit more credence, or weighs it as a very valuable thing to be concerned about.
Maybe similar to what I did with the parks, where I just parsed out that chapter, sent it to Nick, said, what do you think? Maybe if there is a best contact to start with, if it's the Office of Emergency Management, or if it's IDL, or just all the fire districts. If there's a best place to start, I might, start there and then see if they say, you should talk to this fire district though about that.
I think you should start with IDL.
I would
And
too.
entire Coldfelds is Tyre, HOLFELTZ, I'm gonna say, might be just Z,
Tyre,
Tyre.
Tyre, if you're listening, I'm coming for you. Okay, very good. I think we flogged Bunker Hill pretty good, unless there's any more typos that we found. Okay.
quick question on that. Kootenai County Historic Population. It would be, actually would be really nice to actually see the current numbers. You have it stopped at 2020, and we really should.
Yeah, we had huge growth.
Yeah, we really,
We'll see if we can get, because it's been a little while since we originally put this together.
okay,
I think it's way
See,
over 200,000.
there should be some
yeah.
2022 data that we can incorporate in here.
Yeah, that would be good.
And KMPO is a good source
Yeah.
also, because they project.
That's a good catch, because I think new data is officially out. Let's see. Projections are a little bit later. Okay.
Bahamas, Cayman. Yeah.
Well, I still remember, yeah.
Come back to the, we're getting to the future projections, and remind me to put that comment in when we
Sure.
get there for KMPO. So we added a column to, we did this because of that visualization effort. We're starting to look at, okay. No, I'm sorry. I'm on page 31. That was the next kind of track change in the document. I actually have a question on this one. So we added a column to zoning, existing zoning in our table, just shows your existing zoning, where we previously just showed the zone and a description. We added a density, which is based off of minimum lot size. I'm not sure what class A or B means.
Oh,
Manufactured.
it has to
homes.
do with
Oh.
a type of home, manufactured A, manufactured B.
Oh, okay.
They have different federal references
Okay.
and building code references.
Right. Well, for this purpose, maybe it's not necessary to have
You
it.
could
but
probably just strike it.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of my assumption, but I wanted to make sure.
Sure.
So one or two family dwelling, I guess that would that presumably be a duplex?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Or any variation on the theme.
And so,
Two dwelling units.
and just for clarity, two family dwellings plus potentially an accessory dwelling.
Uh-huh.
So potentially up to 3 units.
Yes,
Okay.
depending on the zoning district.
Okay. I'll come back to that. Really just for the purpose of the visualization exercise and what we want to include and what we want to assume and not for that.
Sure.
So we'll take out the references to class A or B.
That's really in there for the planners when they're reviewing building permits.
Like that. We might get another page out of this.
What is par, 65% of par?
That is meant to mean that 65% of the parcel is supposed to be open space, free from structures. Is that?
Oh,
Yeah,
lot coverage?
yes, it would be that.
And rural is the only one with that specific, there must be lot coverage standards in the others, or no?
There are.
There are.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary to
I don't.
include here.
Yeah. I think it's.
It's like A or B, you could just be better off deleting it.
Mm.
So it confuses people more than it
Thank you,
helps.
yes, I was confused.
Right. Again, it's one of those things that planners need for doing review of building permits.
Okay. I think the rest is okay. You'll notice that we, for the 3 districts that the aquifer zoning density standards apply, we included that, and we're gonna include that in the visualization analysis if you think it's gonna be worthwhile, and I'll show you what that could look like.
Aaron,
we need to update
go back up
this.
to light industrial for just a second. I think, I'll wait till you're done.
Are there caretaker units allowed?
No, the next one, no residential uses. Oh, you got it, you caught it. There was, on the printout, it was a space, but that one's fine.
Oh, okay.
So that's on commercial, no residential uses.
Light industrial. Oh, there were just typos, but he's got them fixed in the current version.
David, do you think we wanted to add in there the tribe minimum lot size
Oh,
for the ag and rural zones?
In the rural?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to add, thanks.
The 10-acre one.
Uh-huh.
The district didn't change, but it's similar to the aquifer, similar nature. It's within the reservation boundaries.
Right, it's 10 acres now, is the minimum lot size.
Okay,
For rural.
and that's for rural or just rural?
Just rural.
Well, both agricultural and rural.
Yeah,
Well, okay, yeah,
which we're gonna have to.
because
read out
it
here.
potentially affects family divisions.
Okay. Okay, the map we need to update.
Right.
Oh, where's that?
Now, on your maps, are you going to have some legends associated with them? Because, on page 33, where you show that zoning map, we don't have any legends associated with that, so.
Thank you.
That's
You have, and there's a space between A and B.
And the legend would include then like the
And that's
R1
agricultural,
and
so
all of those, which I think would be very helpful to
Residential.
cross-reference.
Doesn't
Yeah,
show
we need
that on my
know what the
screen.
green stands for, what the yellow stands for, what the
Yes.
brown.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the basics for
Yeah.
people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because they're gonna look at this
Oh, that it
agriculture
would-
and not
okay,
see what,
yeah, because
it
it's
doesn't
probably
correlate
set
directly,
to,
because the
I think that was.
designations don't
No,
correlate
it's
to the
not set
names.
to justified. I think it just.
It
the
shows it
printer
on
that
mine
these were all
too,
printed out,
glitched.
it's a little glitch with the font. I can see, like, if you look at Suburban, the A and the N.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I think part of the issue is
Well, like
we
the kerning
printed
issue.
a small version.
Oh,
When we go to print the large version, it catches those kind of things.
yeah, because you got the it probably squished it because of the comment sidebar.
Okay.
Oh,
The way it printed.
Did you hear Sherry and I talking about the legends and the
Yes.
designations and making sure that, okay.
Yes, I made a note of that here
Perfect.
for the zoning map. We should probably, if it's not there,
For
there
any
is a
of-
legend
yeah,
for
there.
the
Future land use.
for future land use.
It also looks like for your, well, it's orange, I guess, rural thing. The national forest is a green orange on that, and I don't know what, the one on 33, page 33.
It's hard to tell the difference.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
pretty
future
hard to
land
ta-
use map is
And that's, of course,
has always been
that's
different from
public
that,
land,
from the
so-
zoning map.
Yeah, the county doesn't have any authority over those public lands, so I don't know how to,
Well, but we
you
zone
might
them
want to have
anyway.
another color or something's what I'm saying, or something, I don't know. I mean,
You mean between the future and the zoning map? I'm not following you.
Well, the map says zoning 25, figure 25.
Page 33.
You've got the orange, that shows, I guess that's the rural
rural,
zones.
yeah.
Yeah, but then if you look onto the right where it's all the old Coeur d'Alene National Forest, it's kind of a green
Oh,
orange.
that's
Yeah,
our
so
GIS system.
I think we need
I
to
think,
differentiate
Aaron,
that,
what you can do, tell your
somehow.
GIS person is drop out the underlying aerial photo and just go with the colors. Because it's the combination of the aerial and the colors that are doing.
Is that what makes that
Yes.
green-orange?
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
It's frustrating, but that is, when
Yeah.
you're online, you don't see that.
Oh.
But when you print, you do. It's weird, one of those weird.
I think I may have just grabbed this from the county GIS,
Okay.
site. I didn't find an actual PDF created zoning map on the the maps, the GIS maps page. There are some PDF
Adam can
versions.
get it. Adam can get it.
So yeah, if you want us to generate, we can, or if Adam wants
It's
to.
already ready to go. Adam just needs to send it to you.
Okay.
So you and he talked today by email?
Yes.
Okay. So if you just ask him, he's got it ready, he can send it to you
Okay.
in a shape
I
file if you
assume.
want.
Well, if he's got a
Yeah, a clean copy.
clean
He can get it.
PDF, I'll just.
He's a
reference it
wizard at
here
GIS.
Maybe I can even reference a link to it so that if people want to go and see it, a little bit more clear on a screen or something.
That's a good idea, because once you're online, you can zoom in and see stuff you can't see any other way.
I know, that's the kind of problem with these, especially with the county map, It's a lot.
As a sidebar, that reminds me, I'd like to have the Plan Commission's thoughts on a fair number of communities are ditching their paper copies of things and going completely online, especially for comp plans. For the reason you just mentioned, it's easier to see things, you can zoom in and out, you can automatically update with real-time data.
It's easier to search for terms and
so on and so forth. What do you think? As a long-term goal?
I think that's great.
Yes.
Necessary.
Yeah, because the other part that you just mentioned, you can update it or correct errors whenever you find it.
In real
It doesn't
time.
have to, and it doesn't have to
Yeah.
stay there forever, it feels like, until
Yeah.
the next
And actually,
update.
when we did the land use and development code, we actually put in a provision that previously had the official zoning map as a printed map, and it was we actually would pass an ordinance every once in a while saying, include these zone changes in the zoning map. Now it's just the zoning map that's online, and it can be changed in real time as soon as the ordinance, changing the zoning is passed.
You might not believe this, but I just went like this.
So what I've seen.
Didn't do it. That's awesome.
Didn't work.
I do believe it. I do the same thing. It's frustrating.
I've got one other comment, and I know we got so many different colors here, but, working with the tribe like I have in the past, if you show the reservation on here, and you have a 10-acre rule there, and you have a 5-acre in the rest of the county, should you have a different color for your zoning? Because you have a different zoning requirement.
Probably should, even like a hatch line type of
Yeah,
thing.
or something,
Yeah.
because the tribe will want the reservation boundary on here, I'll guarantee you that.
Well, yeah, it should be on there
Oh,
too.
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally agree
because,
with that.
now you don't wanna make the mistake of saying because it's the tribal reservation boundary that the tribe owns all the land within the reservation. No, I had that happen when I was mapping the RGM map.
Right.
And boy, people,
Yeah.
got really upset over that. Well, not hardly any of the land within the reservation is owned by the tribe. So they put a color on there, it made it all tribally owned lands within the entire reservation. And I got into trouble.
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would also be true for the aquifer area as well. I'm really trying not to say overlay. Sorry, I just did.
Sure. I get it.
Is that a question, I guess, on figure 24? We're talking about the zoning in Kootenai County, that third column where it's unit density, I'm assuming that's meant for like residential unit density or dwelling unit
Yes.
density. Would it make sense to include that in the title of that column?
Yeah, I think it would.
Again, just to make the distinction that light industrial, mining, those kinds of things aren't meant for residential use really. And that's why
Yeah.
that would make more sense.
Yeah,
And
that's a
then
great catch, because us planners know what a unit is, but that's not necessarily everyone who would look at this. would
Yeah.
understand.
And then like looking at that commercial part of the column where it talks about parcels not less than 12,000 square feet. I'm not quite sure what that means. If again, we're talking about residential dwelling units, then it should be the same as the high density residential
Yeah, yeah,
standards.
I think that's a,
The 12,000 square foot, is that a minimum lot size for multifamily or in the commercial zone? I honestly don't know. I
No,
had someone
there
else.
isn't.
I tasked
It's
someone
just
else.
reflective of the high density resident. It
Yeah.
references you back to the standards in the high density residential zoning.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so the two should be the same.
okay. So, one dwelling per 3,000 square feet.
I think what he's found in the commercial zone, doesn't it reference that you have to have a minimum of 12,000 square feet of building area or something like that? For multifamily? There's some
It's
place.
one, it's, yeah, 3,000 square feet per dwelling unit is what the standard is. And so I guess if you have a 4-unit, dwelling
I don't
unit,
remember, I just
okay,
remember
be
there's some
12,000 square
reference in
feet,
the
but-
code to minimum size, and that may be where it got confused. But it's an
Okay.
easy fix just to look in
yeah,
the commercial zoning district.
I think for this purpose, the 3,000 square foot per dwelling unit is probably the more important metric to include here.
right,
Okay.
yeah. And then also the aquifer protection as well,
Yeah.
the 5 acres thing.
yeah, it's already there.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe something in the second paragraph under commercial, or the second column, under description, could also, say something about, that the zone allows for mixed residential and commercial uses.
That's a good catch.
For the commercial zone?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not a true strictly commercial zone, it is a mixed use zone.
right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like your C-17 in Coeur d'Alene or your CCS in Post Falls,
Right,
except with less dense
a lot less
housing
dense.
allowed.
Yeah,
Mixed use and residential use. Is there any, sometimes codes have like a density, an additional density allowance for mixed use?
No,
no, we don't have an additional allowance.
Okay.
We just have a provision that allows certain residential units in the commercial zone.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the summary of the cost of service analysis, if we're ready to move on. And the footnote below takes you And actually, it's kind of interesting if you want to dive deeper into it, how the cost of services in Kootenai County may differ from the other 4 counties looked at in Idaho, and where things fall with things like education and education spending and emergency services, for example. It's kind of interesting if you really want to get into the weeds about it. But for Kootenai, the results are basically between 110 and 116 for residential. The ratio of, for every dollar of tax collected by different land use types, how much does it cost to serve that land use? And for residential, for every dollar received, it's $1.10 to $1.16 to serve. For every dollar received for commercial property, it's between 53 cents and 64 cents to serve. And agricultural, it's less. For every dollar received, 39 to 42, which is pretty consistent
around the nation. But
around the
we
nation.
might put an asterisk under the first bullet to clarify that doesn't include impact fees.
Right.
Which would queer the numbers a little bit, but no one knows at this point.
Yeah.
Because this study predates our impact fees by 6 years.
Right. I don't even know if they look at impact fees.
They didn't back then, but it would factor in today.
That be true for commercial then also?
Yeah.
It might.
And the reason why it'd be a good asterisk is to clarify that while this doesn't capture impact fees, to my knowledge, no one's done that analysis yet.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough data for that yet, at least in
Right.
Kootenai County.
Because it's a one-time capture right up front, and then you have to amortize it out over time.
Is there a list of what these community services include?
There is in the report, but I didn't. But they would include.
Sure, fire and police.
Yeah.
What else?
Fire, police,
EMS.
EMS, and I believe road and street.
Typically, it
maintenance,
would include that. Yeah.
Parks.
Maintenance. But you have to really look at the study. I can bring it up if you want. Let's see.
Because my understanding is this is a document that eventually will be that the public can access if they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's accessible right now. It's actually on the legislature's website, Idaho legislature's website, and that's what I linked to.
Right. So, it's like, okay, if someone's doing their research and they go, oh, well, community service, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
well, it's like, here's what you get,
Right.
Which I think
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah, it would be.
So, yeah, this is the whole study, and it kind of details the methodology up top. But I sometimes just jump down to the conclusion and for each of these. Okay. And this is where, if we want to kind of dive into it a little bit.
Aaron, you're going to have to speak up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just I think this is kind of in the conclusion section. There's the methodology up top, but in the conclusions, it talks about, what changed from 1997 it was until 2017 when this redux, we call it, was done. And it talks about how it compares to the other counties looked at with regards to school expenditures, didn't increase too significantly relative to a couple of others. Maybe some levies were passed in those other counties, that could be. reference intergovernmental transfers. That's one source of revenue for any jurisdiction. I think up, let me go to these graphs here if you want to. So again, this is 2017. I didn't include this stuff because there's going to be more updated, your finance office is going to have this information today. I don't know how it compares. But to kind of answer your question about, where does the money go? Back in 2017, let me go to Kootenai County here. Oh, too far. It's this one. Nope, that's Cassia. Canyon. Where'd it go?
Bonneville.
Down. Sorry. Where's Kootenai? Okay, there we go. Okay. So when this study was done, this is where the revenue comes from. Property taxes, 44%. So 42% goes to education, 26% to public safety, public works, roads and streets, 8%. Cultural and recreation, 7%. I think this is administrative, 12%, and then other. I'm not sure what other is. 6%.
At one time, we had that information on the Kootenai County website where we could access, but it's been restructured where you can't find it displayed like that anymore. But we used to have that information on the website for Kootenai County. So it's good to have it in the report. I actually like the pie charts.
Yeah.
I think it helps people to understand where how much of the big pie goes where. So
Well, let me make a
please.
note to get that. That should be really easy to obtain.
Jonathan used to have it.
Oh, okay. Coming for you, Jonathan.
I think this is something that we could maybe put some hyperlinks.
Don't pay attention.
Yeah.
He laughed.
To just,
That's
He
best.
laughed.
and,
Yeah.
He smiled.
We can see.
Yeah, he's all
and
good.
even maybe within the document too, if we look at the table of contents, going directly to chapter 1 or chapter 2 or whatever, so that we can
Yeah.
skip around easier or navigate
Yeah.
through the document a little bit easier.
And then,
hyperlinks within the document?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
Be handy.
hyperlinks are great. And I have a question that was not part of the changes that you made. It was just something that I noticed. It's the page 34 and page 35. They refer to the same thing. I don't know what rural 1, rural 2, rural 3, and rural 4 mean. I looked at it and I go,
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with that. I think even if it's from a different document, I think those should be explained in this one.
Page 40.
34
34.
and 35, because they reference the same thing.
Right.
One's a visual, one's just numeric, and then the other's a visual, which I also appreciate. But I don't know what rural 4 is compared to rural 2. So I just realized, I don't know what this means.
That comes from just a future land use map.
Well, it says
Nothing.
How about there, it says existing land uses in Kootenai County, and I don't know what rural 4 is and rural 3 is all I'm saying. And somebody coming to this will go, what is,
Right, yeah, I agree. It doesn't have a lot of meaning the way it is.
I don't know if we need some sort of explanation with it, or maybe change the wording, or what is it that needs to be?
Resource could use a brief explainer too.
Yeah.
I think commercial and industrial are fairly self-evident.
Well, now I'm kind of wondering where we did get that.
Yeah, something isn't connecting right.
Well, too far. Okay, so let me. I assumed it came from the future land use designations,
But
no,
they're-
existing land use.
Yeah, they're different though.
Yeah, that is different. I'll have to dive into that.
I like it. I think it helps to put things in perspective. I just don't know, as I said, what the rural 1 through 4 means. Because I would assume it has something to do with zoning, but I'm just making an assumption.
Right. You are not alone.
Yeah.
Well, it references the comp plan as this source underneath. So it wouldn't be the zoning then if that's.
Yeah, it'd be actual existing land use.
Yeah.
So
Existing land use, future land use, and zoning all don't necessarily aren't the same thing.
Right.
But I'm gonna note to myself is to look for that specific reference and provide clarity in there, at least for the source, if not for more of a description,
Right.
methodology of where it came from. Assuming we didn't make it up, pretty sure we didn't. Okay, so for cost of community services, note for include impact fees. I don't know where that comment was. It's there. Okay. Okay. Ready for Parks and Rec? Absolutely.
I hate to, maybe I should do it online later, but the second sentence there, the purpose of the studies was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I just changed it. I saw that when I put R, but let's do was.
And aid, I think, would be without the E, but.
You're right. Yeah, this has not been quality controlled, and it was a little late in the evening, I think, when I got to this.
I'm just looking at the comp plan right now, and I see our 1 through 4 in there. So again, assuming that's where it came from.
So we didn't make it up. That's good.
Yeah, it's there. Existing land use map. It says existing residential land uses are categorized by 4 designations, rural 1 through 4. Rural 1 encompassing existing parcels under 2 acres in size.
Okay.
Rural 2 comprises between 2 and 5 acres. 3 and 4 are primarily residential, however, they are generally agricultural or timber exemptions. And there's more, but.
So we
Okay,
just need that
perfect.
as a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ben.
that's great. I'll make an easy key. I might even be able to fit them in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Fit them in the labels. Okay.
And the other thing that you would say is maybe not even just existing land uses, but this is based on 2020 data?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
say-
yeah, the comp plan from 2020.
Is
So
it 2020 data?
Or is it
data?
before
No, it's
that?
2010 data.
Yeah.
It's 2010 data,
Yeah. And
which
so-
is actually 2005 to 2007
Yeah.
Woefully outdated.
is when it was collected.
Yeah, so it would be nice to actually
Yes.
even put this is what we had in 2010 or
Yeah.
25 or, because
Or-
then, because we know, as we already know with the population growth, this is probably already had a fair change to it.
We might be able to do just a revised analysis.
That'd
Yeah,
be
that makes
better.
more sense.
If we can do that, it'd be more meaningful.
Okay.
I need to excuse myself for just a minute.
Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
So we've been kind of, this very brief summary comes primarily from talking with Nick Snyder and digging into some of the Excel spreadsheets he sent me. And I am waiting for him to get back to see what tweaks may be needed, but to kind of give you the snapshot, we created this map based on, we thought it might be interesting to look, and we've showed this map before, but to show not only what the county is maintaining. When I say Kootenai County facilities, that probably should say county maintained facilities, because not all of them are county owned. There are some,
right.
There are some state lands that the county maintains now in various areas. So, make a quick note.
Bike trails, right?
It's not part of Parks and Waterways.
That's a different.
Yeah, well, we don't actually have anyone to deal with that. And just for you that don't know, Nick is my counterpart in charge of Parks and Waterways. But remember that the county doesn't have an open space or a true parks program. We don't have any active recreation parks.
Right.
Everything we have is in the way of boat launches and little picnic areas next to the lake.
And usually the trail maintenance is done by various volunteer organizations, isn't it? A lot of that.
Or the cities. The cities
Yeah.
pick up their parts.
Yeah.
And the Centennial Trail has its own system that's run by statewide funds.
There, according to one of the spreadsheets Nick sent over, there is some maintenance obligation on the county for at least a portion
Right.
of the Centennial Trail.
Right.
So I wanted to reflect that, and I did mention that towards the end. Yeah, I think the biggest telling point actually is what you just said, David, that in Kootenai County, the Parks and Recreation Department is called Parks and Waterways.
And there is no recreation per se,
Yeah.
except for what happens on the lakes.
Yeah, which is somewhat unique, and Kootenai County is the largest service provider in the state for marina services. Really.
Yeah, we get more boats per population than any place in the state.
Yeah. And Nick also informed me, I didn't include this because it included Bonner County too, but between Bonner and Kootenai, 40% of all boat registrations, account for 40% of the statewide.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. And Nick's budget essentially is over 90% or more
Right.
from boat registrations and launch fees. That's what essentially runs the department.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything left over is used to match grants to improve facilities. But it's a very boating-centric parks department with very little developed parks. There's only 3 developed parks. There's other parks that are somewhat slated for development. There's no, like David said, there's no parks plan, master plan in place. There's been a policy in the comp plan since I think
That
2010.
we should have one.
That
Right.
one should be done.
Right.
And that came up talking to Nick as
He's asked for it 13 times and been denied 13 times.
So that's probably, and there isn't a whole lot of large parcels that aren't already taken up for waste disposal or part of the airport
Right.
I believe.
Yeah, the largest blob you see on here is the airport.
Yeah. So there's a lot of small parcels we identify that are owned by the county that, well, maybe something could happen there potentially if, if budget's allowed for it and community, if there's demand. But that would be kind of its own process. Could be a part of a broader comp plan update or standalone, what we call pros plans. Parks, Recreation, Open Space. Sometimes we call them PROST, which is kind of fun. Just put trails at the end. And a lot of these sites are constrained for just boat users because they don't have access by other means, which is, I gave a mention to that in talking to Nick. So again, very boating-centric parks department. It's a waterways department, I guess, more than parks.
Yeah, that's true.
Just something to be aware of when the time comes to look at policies and potential projects later on. So hoping I didn't get this too wrong. I believe there are 35 recreational properties owned by the county, totaling 172 acres. There's more than that. I don't have a number for all the facilities or properties maintained. Might be interesting to know what the difference is. So that will likely have a few tweaks to it following Nick's input. Any questions about this as it is? It's kind of small. Let me try and zoom that in a little bit for all the viewers at home. I don't know if there are any, but don't need that. No questions on parks, waterways, comments? Do you know if there is only 3 developed parks that the county maintains? This doesn't include parks within the cities, by the way.
Yeah, to clarify, to my knowledge, we don't have any parks like city parks.
Yeah.
We don't have ball diamonds. We don't have tennis courts. We don't have any of that.
Yeah, no real active parks.
What you call developed are
Maybe
really picnic areas.
1 or 2 with, or, some playground equipment like in
And
Bayview.
that's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was 3. I thought there
they're
was
mostly
2.
Mostly operated as passive parks.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I just thinking about Hauser, but I think that's the same way. Picnic tables and stuff.
Yeah, that's owned by Idaho Fish and.
But it's maintained by county
Yeah.
parks and waterways.
Okay. Which apparently gets a lot of service calls and a lot of police calls, I hear.
Yeah, that's been that way there for a long, long time.
That's one of those places that has the warmest water earliest in the season, where a lot of folks from out of town. That was another comment. I didn't include that. There's probably some good data on that, but a lot of your parks are used by non-residents, right?
Right.
I mean, if you think about your proximity to Spokane Valley and Spokane, the size of your lake, the amenities that it has, it's no big surprise. And it might be interesting to get some hard data. I got some anecdotal data from talking to Nick about that, but that might be interesting to include for whatever it may be worth in policy development later.
In your,
Structures.
in your 3 parks that you're talking about, I have to ask, do those areas have some sort of commode or porta potties or permanent, in the ground
Restroom facilities?
restroom facilities? Do you guys know at all?
They're typically porta potties.
So they do, you think they do have porta potties there?
Which one?
The ones that, the three that that the report was talking about, there's 3 parks.
Oh, developed parks?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
I know they do at Hauser. I'm pretty sure they do at Lock Haven and Bayview. Those would be the 3 that would have, are likely to have porta potties.
If that's the 3, then I probably need to change how I word this, because I was assuming those 3, and this is based on my conversation with Nick, were owned by the county, not maintained by the county.
He's still going to respond to you on this,
Yeah,
isn't he?
I still
So that's
am.
the level of detail you can clarify.
And that's why my question is, the reason I asked that is like when you go to Oregon, for example, and Oregon has wonderful park system. So I don't think we will ever compare to them, but they do.
Those are pretty good.
Well,
Well, I've been
I'm
to
not-
Oregon Zoo, and they are very well maintained.
They are very well maintained. And so that was my question, because if you have a park that you own and are maintaining and you own, and has a restroom-like facility on it, is there a fee for using, parking and using that area? Because that's what Oregon does. Wherever they have, I noticed that wherever there was, say, some sort of restroom-related facility, they had a board, and they had fee schedules, and they had us scan with your phone and pay for the day use pass, you know, and so that's why I'm asking, of the 3 that we have, because it would be, if you start off with a small amount, it would be easy to institute that type of a policy, see how it goes, and then you can expand it to others if we acquire or put in those facilities.
These are paid to, at the restroom door?
No, it's if you, well,
When you
usually
pull into park.
you pull into park,
Sure.
and you're going to go on a hike,
Right.
Yeah.
and then when you, and then when
Sort
you're
of the
done with
honor
the,
system,
Yeah.
but
and then when you're
Yeah.
done with your hike, you know, you ladies often need to use the restroom and don't like to do it in the woods, so then there's this restroom facility, and there's a park board with a map, and you are here, and this is here, and stuff along that line, and is and for just being there, for parking there, and having the area available to you, and then somebody's obviously has to clean up the porta potty stuff, you know, or whatever it is. There is a fee for just even parking there, whether or not you use it, because it's just, you know, it's designed to help everybody, and so.
right.
You know, that's why I was just asking, you know, of the 3, do we have some sort of restroom-related facility? And you know, I know that the money is mostly through boat registration and stuff along that line, but I would hope someday that we actually have a Parks and Rec, not just parks and waterways, and because there is a lot more recreation.
That would presumably be part of a parks master plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, part of, we do, my firm does these a lot in Washington, which has a lot of funding to do parks plans and funding for improvements. If you have a parks plan certified by, they call Recreation Conservation Office is what it's called in Washington. So they have a specific formula, and one of them is an assessment, a pretty detailed assessment of every park where you list all the facilities and what the staff, you know, what the and the you know, known issues with them or not. Bathrooms always, you know, often depending on the placement of them too, often have, you know, a lot of maintenance issues, graffiti and whatnot. And then you do a demands and needs analysis, public engagement plan, and then capital improvement plan, 6-year capital improvement plan for, you know, and the funding sources that is going to pay for these improvements identified by the community, and the demand and needs analysis and all that stuff. So that would theoretically, like David said, go into either a parks master plan or a, you know, a more robust parks element to a comp plan.
So can we put in our report that we highly recommend a parks master plan?
you can recommend as a body anything.
Anything you want.
You know,
The interesting part will be how far we get with the county commissioners.
Well, I understand that, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put it in.
No, I agree.
You know,
You
so,
absolutely should propose those kinds of things.
so I think that that would be a really good thing, a parks master plan, and then to look at future recreational uses other than water, and the growth in those, and how we can actually capture revenue from those utilization of our community by other people, or even the members, our own members of our community. Because that's like, when we go to Farragut, we have with our car tags, we get a $20 sticker that lasts, for us, we can use all these facilities. And so for people that have that on their vehicle, if they go into one of those areas, they don't have to worry about paying a fee. So same type of process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just,
May I?
please.
I think those are all good ideas, and I agree with them, but this particular document is like a factual document, right?
Correct.
And so if are you suggesting that we put our opinions or preferred policies in here? Because I think they
That'd
don't
be a
belong
next
here.
phase.
Yeah.
Do what?
That'd be a next phase.
But they wouldn't be in this document.
Not in this document, but
No.
that's the
Right,
sort of
right,
thing
right.
we will capture.
Sorry, to capture the data.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
But it's to inform conversations
Thank you.
that you're
Thank
starting
Right.
to have, which is great.
Yeah, this is really helpful because remember all those things when we start talking about goals, objectives, and policies.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so this is where I need to make that, just want to make sure we have the most recent from KMPO that you mentioned, David.
Yeah, be a good check. So they're constantly updating in order to stay on top of federal requirements.
Yeah.
One of the things I always actually find interesting, and it's very hard to find, is what the projection was and what the reality is.
Oh, yeah.
I always find that really fascinating. We can project this, and this is what we projected 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
what the reality actually ended up being. So, and that's actually typically hard to find for those that like to know, It just shows that our projections sometimes can be very right on or very far off. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Aaron, can we change those axes, numbers, because I can't read them without my glasses? I can't read them there. Can we make them black? On the y-axis and the.
Oh, down up here?
And
Yeah.
it prints
Yeah.
are gray, you can't hardly see.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can. I have a lot of stuff on my small screen right now, but I'll make a note to do it later.
So my assumption is we're going to try and make this an online document where individuals can print it out. We just need to make sure that the printout
Printout
version
reads. Right.
is
Sure.
useful. Yeah.
Back to just one thing that just made me think of that you mentioned, Ben, the hyperlinks within the document. The table of contents does automatically hyperlink to various areas. We can see about hyperlinking
Within the document.
but there are some comp plans that provide both a full PDF version and an online version, and to the points brought up, hypertext, that's what HTTP stands for, really pairs well with a comp plan, I think, where, because it's comprehensive and sometimes, housing may reference economic development, a little hyperlink to jump to the housing, and to see how policies and goals relate to different elements, there's been some clever ways to show that online. I think Airway Heights did a pretty good job at one point with that. So that's something that could be kind of exciting to pursue. maybe if it's, within the budget and all that.
Sure.
Okay, so this was what I had last night. I've got some different images to show you. What's that?
Looking at that thing, it's not, preliminary. I don't know what we're gonna do with it to make it better explanatory. It's
Yeah,
just,
we're working on
you guys
that.
will work on it, but I mean, it's a.
Let me.
Is this image pulled from Bonner County? Is that what that is, or?
No, I'll explain that and how we've we didn't have address points when we first made this. We found address points as of this morning, and I'll show you. The overall idea is to kind of show, so forget that image just for a minute. The idea that David and I talked about was to show, okay, why don't we show like the development on the ground now from like an aerial view or from different vantage points, by like known address points, say. And then if we could do an analysis based on existing zoning today, what could be, how development could, a visualization of what the county could look like 20 years from now. Or
I'd like to be able to do scenario planning.
Yeah.
So that one scenario is what you just said. If we keep the status quo, here's what you can expect in 10, 20 years. If we adjust these policies, here's what you can expect, and so on and so forth. That way, the public can start to weigh in, I hope, on the aspirational part of this document of how we should try and plan.
So let me pull up let me just switch gears here and so that was the idea. And that first image was, we didn't have address points, so she showed a real, my GIS tech was trying to show based on existing density and zoning, how many units could be, how much could things be carved up, and how many units could be developed just under zoning. Not considering things like steep slopes or riparian areas or
Any of the other.
some things like that, just zoning, which we may try to, bake in later. But what the map may look closer to, because that was kind of a real cartoony looking version, a very preliminary concept, and I wanted to give you something to start thinking about it, but.
It would be interesting to, I don't know, from the projections we have under these conditions, how long will it take to fill the entire Rathdrum Prairie up or something like that?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Or under these conditions, how long will it take
Right.
to,
Exactly.
fill the whole thing up or whatever?
And kind of the cool thing about this exercise, you can look at it from various different vantage points. So you can do a whole plat of, you can look at it from 2D, or you can say, hey, what would this hillside look like? If it
From a
stood
different
over
vantage
here.
point.
Yeah. Right. So this is just existing addresses now. And like, here's a example of it. That's just showing addresses right now. Right? And so this is like a baseline. So the question is, okay, under existing zoning, how many more dots could be over here and over here? I'm not sure. The reservation is kind of a tough one because it's a checkerboard as far as whether it's county jurisdiction or not. And I don't know, we may even disclude that and just consider it as its own sub area.
Like I said, I've run into problems designating the reservation on other maps and stuff, and various people's positions on it, If you looked at the Forest Service maps for a while, they showed the reservation as all yellow, as if the Indians owned the whole thing.
Oh.
And boy, that was a
Right.
national federal agency map.
Yeah.
They got into a whole bunch of problems over that because it isn't. So I don't know
Right.
how best to deal with that. I think on the RGM map, we show the reservation line, and then it goes across the lake, you know, and up the west shore ways, and that so we do show the reservation line, but we don't necessarily, but it's not colored like it's all owned by one party or something like that, or all under one type of jurisdiction. So we gotta, it is a unique thing to deal with.
Yeah. My first inclination is to just consider that its own sub area and deal with that somewhat separately. And, you know, maybe for this exercise, not include
Maybe
it.
leave it out for now.
Yeah.
Because it's
So-
one we want to work closely with the tribe on.
Yeah. So this is just address points, platted, and I know it looks kind of scary even as is, right?
Can you zoom in just a little bit?
Well, this is
not a
just a
real-time
flat
map.
image, but you know, I can maybe what might be kind of neat. It takes a bit to draw. It's not doesn't you know fly around too quickly. But I can talk to my jazz tech, see if maybe a live demonstration might be kind of useful and or interesting. But you know, if you look at kind of areas up here, what would zoning, you know, how could this area change? Could this all become in the black? You know, would there be any gaps left, right, in 20 years from now? Or anywhere else you see kind of, you know, these pockets of open space. You know, again, existing conditions, right? Just seeing what could be. And the question is, okay, what kind of parameters are we going to put on it? Certainly, we want to take out, I think, public lands.
See, everything to the right there is probably national forest. You see around Hayden there.
Right.
But
It is.
you know, as these communities incorporate more, you're going to close that green
Everything
thing in
between
there, which
Rathdrum,
belongs to the
Post Falls,
county.
and
Up,
Coeur
yeah,
d'Alene could be black
yeah.
at the current rate that we're growing
Will
within
be
20
black.
years.
Agree.
But I'll bet that where you see that black line going around or there on the right, I bet you that's the edge of the national forest. Yeah, right in there.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it
bet.
is.
Yeah, I bet it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
right.
it is. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And down
But one
below
of
as
the
well.
policy questions I'd like to bring up as part of this effort is, you know, lots of communities have worked up intergovernmental agreements with their respective cities to decide we're going to have some open space in this area.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And the cities agreed only next to here, maybe, or something along those lines. It takes real guts on the part of the city council to go there, but it's entirely something, well, it's something in my view we ought to at least discuss. We may end up at the place where the cities all say, we're growing unregenerately, get over it, but I'd like to at least have the.
Close it all in. See, and then you go north of Rathdrum there, that's probably Rathdrum Mountain, that green piece above there, see? Yeah, up, whoop, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, I went too far.
Yeah, yeah, go up a little bit further. See, that whole stretch there.
Up in here?
Yeah, see, that's Hauser and on the hillside
Yeah,
up there, you know.
Rathdrum actually owns that.
Yeah, I know it. I mean, so you could, I guess, build houses on it if it was logical to do it from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah. But I think they bought a big part of that for their open space.
They did, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And just so you know, so far, all the cities I've talked with have said they're willing to be part of our discussion and help us out with policies and those kinds of issues.
Well, that can start when we negotiate ACI.
Uh-huh.
What did we sell off the national forest?
Bite your tongue.
I'll be out there with my rifle.
Suddenly, those costs start to go up on
You
residential.
know, there's some people that really want it.
I know,
All of that public land.
I know.
Okay. Okay. So those are all the changes that we've made. Thank you for the additional changes and comments. I've got all my notes, my marching orders. Is there anything else, or we touched on, what's coming next? Look at policy and as well as, these refinements and elements, and, because there's been some new changes, as, speaking of, areas between cities and county jurisdiction and areas of city impacts. There's certainly some new legislative directives. I don't know if you've all been debriefed on that.
We sent out a draft to all the cities of a starting point for new ACIs.
Oh.
Now they're called AIs. At least, I think the
Well,
legislature purposely left out the city part.
Uh-huh.
Because under the new state law, county regulations prevail.
Right. I'd love to see that, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've got it I can send it to you when we get done.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a pretty significant thing that should be reflected in your policy development and the collaboration, coordination that's going to take.
Yeah.
If you want it to.
Yeah,
I guess you don't necessarily have to.
We should, and the cities want to, so I'd like to. The plan commission meeting, of all the plan commissions in here, that's 5 to 7. Kiki Miller's driving, right?
Oh, thanks, Ben.
There's still seats available.
But not many.
That's good, that's good to hear.
Yeah, we got 55 signed up. 55 people, I mean. I heard.
Glad to hear people
Yeah,
care,
right. Well, housing's a big issue. If you don't know, you should. We have a housing crisis in this nation, in every state, and locally. Most people in this country can't afford a new home. Most renters can't afford rent. Over 50% of the people that rent these days are cost burdened, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income on housing.
And it's not just people in the lower end of the income spectrum either.
Right.
Which room is this thing going to be?
The one we're in.
Here?
Yeah, we'll open that up.
Oh, they'll open it, so you'll have A and B.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Who knows how many people are going to show up?
Well, it was by invitation, so presumably
Well,
not
this
more
is
than.
fine, but yeah, you got RSVP.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And last I heard, we're at 55.
Well, that's not too bad.
Right. Okay, anything else?
Nothing else from me, unless there's anything else at this point from the commission?
That's not. So, to Victoria's point, a review of the issues that we have on the table and where we're going with those.
And if you need, more heads up, I just, like for our next meeting, but I'd like that, I'd just like to understand where we're at. The serial minor subdivisions, the roads.
Oh, everything that's on the to-do list?
Yeah, everything's on the to-do list. If I'm not mistaken, last time we talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice job today. Thank you.
You bet.
Right. Yeah, why don't we just start listing out all the things we know we're supposed to be working on?
Home-based business.
The home-based business is one. The neighborhood, meeting for neighborhoods, pre-development was
Right.
one.
Impact fees, I think, are
We're okay on,
progressing.
yeah, we're okay on impact fees as that's moving forward.
Yeah.
Minor subdivision roads, RBOs, serial minor subdivisions.
Well, minor subdivisions, roads, we took care of at least on an interim basis. That's probably going to be part of the discussion within the next year as we develop the comp plan and what kind of regulations we might be wanting to, and the same with serial minors. I mean,
For the Plan Commission's part, though, Pat, you might backtrack and explain. We did an interim ordinance that doesn't need to go through the Plan Commission, because what we did, we wanted to fix the issue of every time we had a minor subdivision, there were certain circumstances where we had by law to require a highway district standard within the minor.
Right, right.
And so we took that out.
Right.
In this interim ordinance, so that now it's just fire district standard. That eases the tension there, but it's an interim ordinance, meaning we've got to come back around in the usual way, go back through the Plan Commission for a final version of whatever it is we're going to do.
within the next year.
And
Thank
does
you.
that mean that people that use the interim ordinance know that they have to change? Or are they able to just,
Or they grandfathered.
are they
yeah.
grandfathered in by the interim ordinance? The fire,
Well, it's
Standards.
actually more lenient standards, so.
So, to answer your question, people that came in before the interim ordinance are, well, are presumably going forward under the old code unless they want to choose to use the new interim code, which they can do. But people that come in now automatically fall under the interim ordinance.
and that interim does
Fire
not.
fire district standards.
Yeah, and that interim does not require any changes after a final one is done, because it's an interim? Do you know, so they're
I'm not
coming in.
following.
Like a temporary that they
It's
have
not
to
a temp-
update.
Yeah, it's not a
Oh,
temporary.
yeah, no, once you're done, you're done. There's
Yeah,
no
you
retroactive
can't
part of
change
it.
this kind of
Okay.
stuff. I mean,
Just-
that'd be.
just
oh
wanted to
my
make
God.
sure I
If you
understood.
get a new minor subdivision with fire district roads, that's what you get. You
Okay,
don't have to come back and do something new.
okay, that's what I was trying
Because
to make sure I
land
understood.
use planning zoning is almost never retroactive.
Gotcha.
And is that satisfactory to the emergency services people? Because that seemed to be the whole reason why we were discussing that, is that the roads were not safe for like fire vehicles or emergency vehicles, even
The
though
fire
it's-
district standard so far seems to be holding the line with that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was the main point.
Right.
You're right.
I think the biggest problem that we've got is that the fire standards, you know, they're sticking with those, but it's from an engineering standpoint, you're building roads that aren't worth a darn.
Yeah, that's the
That's the
maintenance
problem.
issue. Yeah.
Well, it's
Right.
not even maintenance. It's you know, it's the structural issue. It's the quality of the infrastructure that's being built. That's the width of the road, the stabilization of the subgrade, the surfacing, and all those kind of engineering things that just aren't getting done. And then sometime later, somebody wants to get the government to fix all the roads that aren't to standard or something, and that's why we have the problem.
that's sort of
But
retroactive.
what I don't want to have happen, and I'm a licensed professional engineer, I don't want us to come up with a standard that gives you Highway 95 through everybody's subdivision or something either. So
Right.
I want to have something that's reasonable, but I don't want us allowing the construction of substandard stuff that every time you drive a heavy vehicle down there, you get stuck or something, or,
Right.
that kind of a problem. And you can have a thing that talks to the fire standards for access and turnaround and all that, but maybe you can't get the fire engine down there because it goes through the road and gets stuck, because the surface is not properly constructed. So that's what I'm concerned about.
So you mentioned this is a 1-year window? So we
Yes.
can get a 1-year interim plan
That's the
from.
legal status of interim.
Oh, okay.
So why was an interim created versus just
A final fix,
right?
because we don't know what the final fix is. You don't either. I need
Okay.
your help to tell us what the final is. But to me, it's better to have something that doesn't create a ridiculous standard where, you'll remember the discussion where we were getting these new minor subdivisions where they're supposed to have a highway district road through the middle of it, but it doesn't go anywhere and you can't get to it with a highway district standard. That just seems stupid to me.
You see, that's his point. See, I'll just give you an example. Okay, so we have a new standard, say you gotta have a road that's 24 foot wide with a finished surface. You gotta have so much, 2 feet of stabilization rock and all, you got a standard for the road. But the road getting to it through an old subdivision is a goat trail.
Right.
See, so then what do you
Right.
do?
With that.
Do you make the goat trail back on the previous allowance? Somebody make that, bring that up to standard, so you've got a constant standard. And, like I told you guys, I lived in Fairfax and Prince William County, Virginia for many years. And we had roads there that George Washington rode his horse on. And then you'd go along this narrow 16-foot wide dirt road and you'd hit a new subdivision and you'd have a 5-lane paved highway in front of the subdivision with a turn lane. And then as soon as you went past the subdivision, you went back to Georgia's goat trail again. And and finally the county, well, they call them supervisors back there, but they finally passed the ordinances that said, when this subdivision is established, it's got to build everything up to it to standard as well, because they had all these, it was crazy. I mean, it was
That's what we do.
impossible.
That's actually pretty much what we do with major subdivisions.
Oh, they're big ones. Yeah, they're not little tiny. Oh, no,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
It was with minors. and
Wealthy
you-
people doing this, it's
and-
developers, yeah.
and the-
Oh,
the-
yeah,
The issue with minors that you brought up,
yeah.
actually, potentially invokes the takings clause, because a small, mom and pop developer of 4 parcels or whatever, it's a long way from the nearest public road on a literal goat trail. Their impact on the road wouldn't be proportionate to what the cost would be to pave the whole thing and build it to highway district standards all the way to the nearest public road. So that's why we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on it.
Exactly.
And so we relaxed the standard, at least for the time being, till we can get some good policy direction one way or another.
So, yeah, we gotta try to come up with some kind of, something that makes sense, but also protects the public and our infrastructure and all these kind of, so we don't end up with just a mess around.
A hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because, I mean, out where I am, you got all these private roads and they all got a blue sign on them instead of, and they're everything and anything.
I know.
In fact, in some cases, when we have bad weather, we had a lot of rain here lately. The school bus won't go down some of those roads, guys, because they're afraid of getting stuck. So the kids have all got to walk clear out to Bruner Road or Flagstone Road or something to catch the bus, because the bus drivers aren't going to drive down in there and get stuck. So that's what we got.
So what is the time for us to be back at this discussion and coming up with some answers? The kids have.
In terms of projects,
Yeah. I mean, first, I guess, what is the procedure, since this current
you're talking about roads, right?
roads, right?
Okay,
So there's an interim ordinance
right,
that's being a Band-Aid for now.
right.
Okay, what is the timeline for looking at a permanent solution to this? What do you want from us to be in a timeline to be?
Well, sooner is always better,
ASAP.
but ideally, at least within a year, we need to come up with a new standard. Because in a year, like Pat said, we've got to have a permanent solution.
So when were the new standards applied?
When did it go into place?
Oh, was that 2 weeks ago or a month ago? I can't remember, Pat.
A month ago.
Month? Okay.
Okay.
So maybe have a goal by the end of summer. We've got a
Yeah.
plan in place, so when the interim is ready to lift, we've got something that can instantly be applied.
That'd be good.
As soon as the commissioners will pass it.
So we can start working on it.
At least if we've
right
got a
away.
proposal, at least that's
Right.
9/10 of the issue.
Start in January?
Sure,
Yeah,
we should. It's been a sticky wicket so far.
yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Okay, what about,
Everything else on the,
Yeah, certain items.
how do we tackle that?
Well, isn't it fair to say the cereals sort of go hand in glove with roads?
Yeah.
They do.
And Ben actually came up with a partial solution for the cereals. I'd like to pull the trigger on that part as soon as we can, just to get that piece out of the way, because that lessens some of the issue that we're having.
So,
Do we meet in December?
Yes.
yeah, we can.
You certainly can. I mean, it's always hard because everyone's on vacation.
Right, that's why I asked if we do. I'm around most of it, so. But I'm just one of you.
Two of the issues were, the home-based businesses and the pre-development community meetings, and those are waiting for Pat, is that correct? To put into ordinance form?
The home base
The
and
home-based businesses and the pre-development community meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I know this commission is, a previous iteration of this commission has worked on both of those issues, but once you get, what you're comfortable with moving forward, then yeah, it would go to me. Well, it'll go to David and Ben first probably, and then to me to kind of refine it. And then
we also need to deal with VRBOs.
yeah.
I thought we had the home-based business stuff all taken.
We did, I thought
That's
it was,
what I just-
thought
yeah,
it was
that's what I just
sitting
said.
on Pat's desk for,
But he said that he hasn't been doing it because he's waiting on.
We've had more pressing issues to deal with during this time. But yeah, there is a draft that was completed by, like I said, a previous iteration of this board, which I think this board should go back to and determine, if any further changes are needed before.
So a draft can be brought before the board?
Workshop.
Okay.
Right.
review those two issues.
Pat, do you have those drafts in Word form?
Yes,
Would you mind emailing to me and I'll just
that's
put
fine.
them on the next work agenda? Okay.
So, I don't remember
It's been a
us
while.
doing VRBOs.
It's been a
I
while.
mean, we mentioned them.
Well, we had a couple of workshops on them. There was consensus that we ought to put together a combination using Chelan County and the city of Coeur d'Alene with some other things the Plan Commission threw in.
Yeah, wasn't there a McCall too?
Yeah,
we
there
had-
might have been, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
so,
But
yeah,
again,
we-
that was all in draft concept.
Yeah,
I don't think it ever got any further than that.
yeah.
So, how do we come up with some potential wording to massage? And do you have any suggestions for that?
Seems like we had a draft that used Chelan and city.
We need to go back and
Yeah.
Seems like we just need to find that and bring it back to this group in a workshop, make sure you're comfortable with it. Because it was pretty bare bones, as I recall.
Yeah, I don't, let me,
impact fees, we've dealt with that.
we've got the ones from we've got the ones from Coeur d'Alene and Chelan, but I don't think we've actually melded them into
An actual document.
That was my reflection, we kind of looked at it, but we didn't.
We agreed in concept that we would
Right.
use bits and pieces of these things, but I don't think we,
didn't do it.
I don't think we ever actually had a draft.
So who would do that? I mean, who would put it, throw it on the board and say, pick it apart?
Well, normally Pat does these things, but he's been overwhelmed with other stuff.
So,
So what do we do with it?
yeah, what do we do with it?
I'm open to suggestions. I don't have anyone on my staff sitting around twiddling their thumbs.
Well, can we get the wording from the three that we're talking about, the two, Chelan and Coeur d'Alene, at least get that in front of everybody?
Yes,
Hey, Dave,
yes.
if I could help you out with anything, the only caveat, I don't have any liability or malpractice insurance anymore.
You don't need any.
Yeah, if I help you, yeah. You see what I'm saying?
This
Yeah,
is all draft stuff.
I lost all of my
Don't need
Be
it.
under Kootenai County's
malpractice
or-
You'd be
insurance when
under
I
our,
retired. Yeah,
you'd be under our authority.
yeah, but anyway, you
Don't
know,
need any, right.
yeah, because, you know, I need to keep busy.
Well, if, Pat, do you have that stuff? Did we ever actually have like a list of something? Seemed like I emailed you with an idea. It's been a year
Yeah,
or 2 years
I
ago.
have some recollection of that. It's
Would you
been
mind
quite a
looking and
while.
see what you have?
Yeah,
And then I'll just forward it to you.
okay.
And then,
Yeah, I'd take a look at it.
and
We've got a
just,
bunch of proposals that staff have come up with as well,
right.
both within these categories and others.
And I remember even in the email, we discussed that as a concept, we wanted to have a very limited approach. It was only going to hit these certain things and not others. And if we can resurrect that sort of background information, that would help compose.
Like I said, and, you know, I don't mind doing that. I mean, I've been doing volunteers.
Well, thanks. That'd be really helpful.
But it's just, that I just don't want to expose myself to.
You won't be.
Personally to something.
No, you wouldn't
You
be.
understand that.
It'd be like a draft that you come up with in here,
$1 million in malpractice
and
insurance.
then
Yeah.
we would take it and put it into final legal format for the code.
So we're talking the
VRBO, right.
We do have errors and omissions assurance through ICRIM, so, you know, that would cover anything that any of us in this room do, so.
So
And it's
impact fees.
being
okay
legislated,
on
there's very little risk anyway.
On that one.
Right. Yeah,
We've taken
actually,
care of a couple of them,
we're actually okay on impact fees at the moment, waiting for the board to schedule.
those are all the ones that I have, you know.
That's all I remember.
Are there any others?
Whatever happened with the family exemption? Did that get taken
It
care
got
of?
approved,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Dave, you mentioned too that the county commissioners are gonna vote on the protection of the aquifer thing. At the meeting yesterday, you mentioned that. I don't remember the date.
Oh, the
Critical material?
critical materials is 12,
I think so.
November,
12th of this
Yeah,
month? Okay,
right.
yeah, the next
so
one.
next week.
That's the one that we, passed.
Right, it is. Yeah, and I'm assuming that's sailing right through because everyone seems to understand it. I haven't had any complaints, which is amazing. I always love those guys.
Yeah.
Rare in this county.
So,
When would you like to meet next? And which of these can we bring forward?
We can do any time it works for you in December if you want.
Want to send out an email like you
Yeah,
had before?
I will.
Yeah,
I'll let
figure
you
it
know.
out.
Yeah,
People are
we've got a lot of things, and I appreciate people wanting to make headway on some of these things. I think some of them have been hung up for a while, but you had the question about maybe zoning, you know, over the aquifer for the manufacture, transportation, storage, or whatever of hazardous substances. My recommendation or suggestion would be let's get all of our other things taken care of before. That is going to be that would be quite a process
Yeah.
to,
Well,
yeah.
it's one that lends itself to our comp plan work because it really should be driven by policy in the comp plan. And
That's
if it
a
gets
good
that
point.
far-
That's a good point too,
I'd
yeah.
rather be proactive than reactive.
And if it gets that far, meaning
Yeah.
adopted as policy in the comp plan, then it's fairly easy to come back and draft up a reg.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that we would just, go into
Go
big
storming
discussion
into it.
tonight, no.
But put it on the
But
docket.
yeah, that public thing that we
Right.
did about it was eye-opening for me. And I didn't know that geological,
Sure.
Strata.
yeah, how unique it is and how susceptible
Right.
it is. And so I'm thinking, well, why aren't we protecting it more? It just seems like a ticking time bomb.
I agree.
So,
Well, coupled with that, I'd like you to be thinking about, does the 5-acre rule really suffice? That concept came up in the 70s. And so far, it's worked okay.
Yeah.
PhD staff tells me they think 10 acres might be smarter.
I
don't
agree
know
with that,
much
actually.
things about that, but it's certainly one to discuss.
Yeah.
yeah, and they were saying that, they can only get to places like every 2 years.
Right.
Because, their limitation of staff and the
Oh,
number.
Panhandle Health you're talking about,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and, 2 years, a lot can happen in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I wanted to just bring it forward and.
I just remember the hassle that we went through when Burlington Northern Santa Fe put that fueling station in out there. Ooh, that was quite the
That was a big
process.
one.
It was never gonna happen, there was never gonna be a leak
Yeah.
until there was.
Right, exactly. So, anyway, so that's why I brought it, not thinking we would go over it tonight.
But I didn't want to put you down, I was
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, knowing some of these kinds of things that I've had to deal with in the past, that it'd be good if we could settle a bunch of these other things that we've got on, and then your idea of having it dealing with, the comp plan deals with the aquifer, see? And then,
Right.
see, and then,
It's a natural flow of thinking.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's life or death in a lot of ways. It's very important. It's integral to our sustenance here, our life, our well-being. Some of these other things, they're maybe minor irritations or they're problems, but if we damage our aquifer and irreparably, I can't even say that right now, irreparably, we are all as a community, all this other stuff then goes away because now we have something that is so important, and what are we going to do about it?
I should give you a copy of the white paper I sent to the county 5 years ago on the
I'll read
5-acre
it.
rule.
Send it to
And I
me.
specifically speak to all of that,
I would like to read it.
Yeah, I might have it on the computer
So I'm
someplace.
on board with you. I think we should push it up the list.
I will send out dates and. See what we can do.
Okay,
Anything else?
The order.
not for me.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
Adjourn at 3:29.
everyone.